What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today is captaincy for Game Week 5. Now, I said in my Game Week preview video, I'm taking captaincy out of that video, try and keep it more streamlined, although it was still quite long on Wednesday, and then doing captaincy on a Thursday or a Friday. So it's Friday this week, and it's probably when I'll mostly do it. And I think captaincy is such a decision that you can make last minute. It doesn't really matter if it's out at the start of the week or not. And also, I wanted to just do it separately to put a bit more time into it and potentially not rush it as much as I do in the Game Week preview. Although the video is going out after the press conferences, I will have recorded it before the press conferences have come in. Unfortunately, that's just due to time and trying to get it out on time, etc. But I will take into account like what might happen in press conferences and what the different scenarios will be, right? Because I know which players we're waiting for information on, like Sterling, De Bruyne, etc. So if you do enjoy this in its own separate video, please do let me know in the comments below. Please do give it a like as well to show your support. Hit that subscribe button and let's jump into it. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is basically go through some of the key matches with the key players that I think most people are going to be looking at for captaincy, that I think are the best for captaincy, etc. Not necessarily going to be in my team or whatever, it's just the best captaincy options for the week. And then I'll go through some matches where people might be thinking about players from those games, but I'm not really too sure about them, so it'll be a little bit more of a kind of a quick snapshot for them. And then there'll be games we just don't mention, right? Sheffield United versus Fulham. I don't care how good you think Brewster is. There's no way we're talking about him in a captaincy video. Not yet, at least, anyway. So we'll start off with probably the biggest game of the weekend, Everton versus Liverpool. Merseyside derby. And there's a lot riding on this. Everton have started really well, as we know. Liverpool have just got beaten by Aston Villa too. So both sides are going to want to get one over on each other because that's what they do in all of these games anyway. But obviously Liverpool to bounce back and Everton to get their 5th win in a row, which to get it over Liverpool would be pretty damn incredible. So there's a huge game. I think one of the key things with captaincy, which I've noticed quite a lot this season, because I'm trying to pay attention to my captaincy a little bit more. Like, I'm not really going for captaincy punts or anything like that. And it's some people will back the defence and some people will back the attack. So a lot of times when people look for their captain, they don't necessarily... Obviously, you've got to look for the best fixture, right? You fixture and form and, you know, general player ability all comes into it. But what a lot of people will do is go and look at the defence first. How good is the defence they're playing? Right, it's good. I don't want to get them in. So, for example, with Everton, so far... and I do, when I use underlying stats, I do use expected goals, expected assists, and expected goals conceded quite a lot, right? As the main ones, because they take so much into account. I don't necessarily need other ones, and it remains consistent, yada, 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 right? So Everton, best defence so far in the league this year, 4 games, 3.24 expected goals conceded. That's less than any team that's only played 3 games so far, so including Man United, including Man City. Now, they have played fairly easy games, right? Spurs, West Brom, Palace and Brighton. And some people will look at that and think their defence has been so good, I've got to look past Mane or Salah. But when you look at expected goals, so not conceded, but the actual expected goals for the team, Liverpool are second, having already played Leeds, Chelsea, Arsenal, and that Villa 7-2 loss as well. So you've got kind of one of the best attacks versus one of the best defences, or the best defence so far. Which do you back? And I think in this one, I would definitely go for the attackers because it's Mane and Salah. Like, what more could you want? Salah expected goal involvement so far in 4 games is 4.35. So he should average just over a return a game. And he has done that so far, right? 6 returns, which is decent. And then Mane is 2.78, so nearly 1 a game because he's played 1 game less, right? He missed the last one, he should be back. Salah's created 14 chances already and had 15 shots in the box in just 4 games. Absolutely ridiculous. And one thing with Everton is we don't know how many of their players are going to be fit, right? Press conference news, we're waiting on Luka Dean, Coleman, Allen, Gomez, Richarlison. If any of them are missing, it does make them a weaker team. All I would say, though, Doucouré was fit last time. He played really well. The players that stepped in, Sigurdsson, Tom Davies, they did really well as well. Yes, it was a little bit of an easier game against Brighton. Liverpool going to be much more difficult. But it is going to be a tougher test for Liverpool than they've probably had against Everton in recent times. But for me, I think a lot of the times people, for whatever reason, they try and look over Mane and Salah, and they're always looking for a different kind of captain option. I do think there's some good options this week, which we'll come on to in a minute. But I don't really see a huge reason why you couldn't just captain Salah this week. I'm not saying necessarily that he's now our permanent captain, because over the next kind of 5 to 6 weeks, there are a few games where I'm not looking to captain him at all. But in a week where maybe we're a little bit worried about Man City players, which I'll talk about in a minute, maybe you don't own the likes of Kane and Son, a default captain to Salah is never a bad thing. I'll quickly touch on Everton, and by quickly I mean I wouldn't be captaining any of their players. I know they've started well. I've got triple. I've got Luka Dean, Rodriguez, Calvert-Lewin in my team. Not looking to captain any of them. It's just not, for me, there's just not enough upside. Calvert-Lewin's probably the best option, or Richarlison if he's fit, but they're forwards, so they have to get a pretty big score to kind of necessarily beat these midfielders with slightly easier fixtures. So sometimes if the fixture's really good, like a Fulham at home or West Brom at home, you might consider it. But against Liverpool, the defence is just too good usually. Although this year it hasn't been as good as Everton's. But again, just a 4-game sample size. And I think that's probably the key for this whole thing. Right, we are only looking at 4 games. So saying that Everton's the best, Liverpool the second best attack, or Everton are the best defence and Liverpool the second best attack, you know, that could change, but you don't expect the Liverpool part of that to change. So Mane, Salah looking like great options this week. Calvert-Lewin, look, if you want a massive punt, go for it, but it's definitely not for me. Chelsea versus Southampton, or as I like to call it, the battle of the lines. Like, how often this week, and probably for me as well, and I just want to apologise, how often have we heard about this Southampton high line? Werner's going to exploit the high line. Southampton play with such a high line. Chelsea are going to do really well. Chelsea have scored so many goals. They're playing against this high line. It's going to be a great week to captain them, right? I really hope that Southampton line is high, because otherwise people are going to be very annoyed if they choose Chelsea players as captains. So I looked at expected goals conceded, right? Southampton's is just 3.88 in 4 games. Now, they have had slightly easier fixtures when you think about Burnley and West Brom, not great attacking teams. But that's only slightly worse than West Ham at 3.71. And everyone's kind of saying that the West Ham's defence is really good. They've not conceded any big chances. But in terms of expected goals conceded, which are taking in the quality of chances that are conceded, obviously Southampton have conceded more big chances, right? But overall, XGC, it's not very different. So Southampton have actually done okay. And obviously, Chelsea is going to be a little bit of a tougher test, though, right? We all know that. Chelsea, 6th highest for XG so far this season. Given how they've played, given how when you watch the games, I don't think they've actually played that well, but they're actually doing okay, right? So I definitely wouldn't back against them. But here's the thing, right? For the key players that we're looking to captain in this game, Werner and Havertz. Havertz has had 1 shot inside the box in 4 games. 1 shot. Now, I know what everyone's going to say. Yeah, but he played here, but he was on the right, and then he was centre, and they've not had Pulisic, they've not had Ziyech. This has been the whole argument for 4 games. We still don't know if they're going to have Ziyech and Pulisic, right? Let's see what Lampard says. Is Lampard going to say, yeah, both fit to start, 100% going to play 80 to 90 minutes? Absolutely not. He's not going to say that. There's a good chance that one, if not both, might start on the bench again. Like, Chelsea have got the ability to win without them. But 1 shot inside the box. He's only created 6 chances. Salah's created 14 and had 15 shots in the box, right? Havertz, he's looked okay. And we know, I think one thing I will say about Chelsea players is we know the ability is there. We know that Havertz and Werner are good players, but it's just not clicked so far. Werner, 2 chances created, 9 shots in the box, only 4 on target. Here's the thing for me. Their expected goal involvement, right? So that's expected goals and expected assists. Combined is 1.59 for 4 games. There's 25 players who have more than what they have combined. And again, it's just 4 games. No one is expecting this to happen for the rest of the season. But right now, there's a lot of if Pulisic's fit, if Ziyech is fit, if Werner plays up front, if Havertz plays number 10. There's lots of ifs to go into this game and hoping that everything clicks at once. And Southampton's line is high, right? The defensive line. So for me, they are... Do I want to use the word punt? I don't know, but I'm going to use it. I think it's a bit of a punt. I think there's better options this week. I think most people will have better options in their team. This is one of those games where you go for it because you hope that the fixture's good and you hope this is the week that they click. And if they do, you'll be ahead of the pack. And I think that's why a lot of people are captaining Werner and maybe even Havertz for some people. But I do think it's a punt. And I do think there's better options out there. Look, if Lampard says that Pulisic and Ziyech both start, then they could even be captain options, especially Pulisic. But no one, well, I say no one, most people aren't going to run the risk of that. So for me, I don't particularly like these 2 as captain options, even Werner. I appreciate that people are keeping him for this game, and it could be a good one. If he gets off the mark, he could be an option going forward. But captaincy is such a big part of our game every single week. For me, I just wouldn't be risking it on either of them. So I think Liverpool versus Everton is hard to call. I think this one might even be more difficult because of all the kind of worries about De Bruyne and Sterling being injured, or Aguero and Jesus going to be back. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's start off with Arsenal first and Aubameyang, right? I'm sure most people now are not thinking about captaining, but there's probably a few of you out there. Surely not. He's had 4 shots in the box in 4 games. He and Arsenal, I don't think they've looked that good going forward, right? Arsenal are getting wins. I get that. There's a few Arsenal fans that keep commenting. They're saying that I'm down on Arsenal. I'm sure they're going to continue to get wins. But I think when you want to captain someone, you're looking for kind of a team that can put away 2 or 3 goals at relative ease in most games. And I'm just not seeing that from Arsenal right now. And I think against Man City, that's going to be difficult. 4 shots inside the box. Just rubbish, right? I'm sure he'll get better and better. He's so consistent. But maybe he was, I don't know, got that contract and now he doesn't care. He doesn't strike me as that kind of player, but you just never know, right? So Aubameyang definitely not. And the thing that I worry about this game is, like, Arteta versus Pep is such an interesting matchup because they both kind of know what the other one likes to think. Obviously, Pep was the manager, but Arteta would have been given his input. He's learnt from Pep. Is he going to be, is Pep going to be thinking, well, Arteta knows that I play like this, so he's going to play like this, so I'm going to play like that. And then Arteta will go, yeah, but he knows I'm going to play like this, so he's definitely going to go and play like that instead, which means I'll change my tactics to play like this. And will it come down to it so much that they try and outsmart each other and one of them just messes it up royally? And you just don't know, right? The problem for me for Man City is, like, I was all over this fixture. I've had De Bruyne captain since game week 4. I've not taken it off him yet. I'll talk about Sterling as well in a sec. I think he's a good option. But I do wonder if they're missing that number 9, right? And I've seen reports that Aguero is going to be ready to be in the squad. I'd be very surprised if Aguero just starts the first game that he's available for. Surely it's a benching and then maybe come on for 10, 20, 30 minutes at most, get him up to match fitness. And we don't even know if Jesus is going to be back. And if you look at their underlying numbers so far in attack, and again, just a 4-game sample size, etc., it's about half what it was last year in terms of expected goals per game, which isn't good. And I do think, Wolves was tough enough, right? Leeds made it tough in the end. But I just think they're missing, I don't know, it feels like they're just missing Aguero and Jesus a lot. So do I think this is still a good matchup for Man City? Yes. But the game is good, right? Arsenal defence hasn't really improved that much under Arteta, despite what people keep telling you. But I just worry about the Man City attack, whereas I'm not worried about the Liverpool attack. I'm not necessarily worried about the Spurs attack, etc., which is kind of putting me off a little bit. In terms of De Bruyne versus Sterling, I still think it's very close. For me, on a single game kind of captaincy choice, I still think that Sterling is the better option because he's more likely to score from open play. That's where you're going to get your big scores racking up. Of course, if De Bruyne goes and gets 3 assists, 2 assists and a penalty, whatever it might be, he's going to get a big score. But it's so much easier to rack up points as a midfielder when you've got those goals behind you. And Sterling's going to be the goal scorer in that team. So I still think he's the best option. Of course, if Man City get a penalty or 2, then De Bruyne will, in hindsight, obviously be the better option. But it's impossible to call penalties. So I think it's very close between them. I'd put Sterling slightly above De Bruyne. But yeah, I guess Arsenal have got Partey now. Thomas Partey. I'm probably pronounced. Is it literally pronounced like party? Like go to a party? I don't know. I'll find that out. He could improve them. Is he going to improve them straight away? I don't know. And also it's Man City, right? So it's going to be difficult to just come in and kind of stamp your authority on a game like this. So I still quite like the Man City players. If De Bruyne and Sterling are both fit, I'd like to hear more on Aguero or Jesus. Not sure they're going to start. And that I was all over De Bruyne captain. I'm slowly starting to come around into someone else like Salah, Kane or Son instead. So there's a lot of love for Spurs right now, and rightly so, to be fair. One thing I find really interesting, especially when you look at kind of the underlying numbers, Spurs right now are top for expected goals, but Everton, a team that have played them, although it was on the opening day, are the best for defensive numbers. So in that first game, Spurs did find it quite tough, and a lot of their kind of numbers and goals have obviously come from the next 3 fixtures, especially Southampton and Man United, where they were maybe a little bit fortunate, but I wouldn't take anything away from Spurs. You've got to give them credit as well. They did extremely well to get that many goals, and they should have had more against Newcastle as well. I think Højbjerg's doing really well for them. Reguilon's coming now on that left-back spot. I think that can only be good for them going forward. And when Gareth Bale comes in as well, it's going to be pretty devastating. And again, we might hear from Mourinho, whether or not we trust him or not, that's a different conversation. We might hear from him that Bale is available this week, which would just make things massively interesting for me. Like I said earlier, no big chances conceded for West Ham. In terms of expected goals conceded, same as Southampton, and everyone's looking to target, or not everyone, but a lot of people are looking to target that Southampton game. So if we're targeting that, I still don't think I'm at the position where I think that West Ham are a really good defensive team. I know they're going to sit much deeper than other teams that Spurs have done well against, like Southampton. Again, we'll talk about that high line. But the numbers for West Ham are not... I mean, they're pretty good, right? Don't get me wrong. They've played 4 games, and they're pretty tricky games, and they're less than 1 expected goal conceded per game. So that's pretty decent, but they weren't that good last year. So have they suddenly turned it around, or have they got a little bit lucky in the first games? Have they just happened to play well, and now it's going to be a struggle against Spurs? What I'm basically trying to say is I don't think their defence is so good that I would worry about captaining my Spurs boys. So definitely looking at Kane or Son in this one. For me, like, it's even a bit too early to maybe have Bale in your team. But if you've gone for it, I definitely think it's too early to captain. You don't know what he's going to be like. Obviously, there's a lot of hope he's going to be as good as he was. And also, you don't know how many minutes he gets. His first game for a while, he could just get like 50, 60 minutes and then be taken off. So definitely too quick for that. But I think Kane and Son looking good. So in terms of who the better option is, it's actually quite close. So expected goals involvement for Kane is 4.78. That's around 4 if you take out his penalty. And Son is 2.61, so slightly behind, but he's also played about 60 less minutes as well. The thing for me is Kane has taken double the amount of shots in the box, right? And I do think Kane is looking really good right now. So if I had both, I think it would be tricky because you back the extra point for the goal and the extra point for a clean sheet if they get one of Son, or you back the penalties for Kane. And the fact he's taken so many shots in the box, and he's almost created as many chances as Son as well. So I'd actually, if I had both, I think I might just about live to regret this, but side with Kane. Just because of the penalties and overall numbers are looking pretty good or slightly better than Son as well. If I was just having to buy one this week and just go for one, I probably would go for Son. I don't know if Kane has stepped it up so much that I want to pay that extra money for him. Obviously, like I said, the extra point for the goal, extra point for the clean sheet for Son, etc. But if I had both, I'd be tempted to go for Kane right now. I'm trying to get away from this. There's no standout captain option, so it's a good chance. It's a good chance to go different because players like De Bruyne, Sterling, and Salah and Mane, they score well regardless, right? So going different is always a bit of a risk. But this week in particular, I do think it's so close between the City boys, the Liverpool boys, and the Spurs boys that I would probably, if I had Kane or Son, look to side to them as long as you don't think that West Ham defence is suddenly impenetrable. Because if you do think that, you shouldn't go for them. But in a week, like when I say go a bit different, I'm not talking like go for more pay or go for Danny Ings against Chelsea. I'm talking Son and Kane in excellent form against West Ham when a lot of people will go for City or Liverpool. I think it could be a really good week to do it. I think Kane's slightly ahead, but to be honest, you could almost just flick a coin, right? It's that close. But this is a good fixture. If you jumped on Spurs early, well done to you. If you've got them this week, you must be looking at captain, surely. So I know this video has already been quite long, so I'll just run through these really quickly. Basically, I think, the players have already talked about much better options. Leicester versus Aston Villa, right? This is kind of Vardy's, not last chance, but the fixtures are a little bit tougher after the Villa game. He's been propping up his FPL points by penalties a lot. You can't rely on them. His underlying numbers are not good enough for me. I know he, a bit of a stats buster, etc., but he's really not getting enough chances for me to consider him as a captain option this week. He'll probably turn around and get two penalties now. Newcastle versus Man United, like not going anywhere near Man United players, even in my team right now, let alone captain, and just not looking good. I'm sure they'll turn it around at some point. We'll have to consider them, but right now, absolutely not. And Leeds versus Wolves, like I'm almost thinking about when can I get rid of Jimenez, let alone when am I captaining him, especially against Leeds. So not really looking for players in any of these fixtures. I think this is when you're getting to punt territory, and anyone I've not mentioned, definitely not an option right now. So that is it for this one. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. What I'd like to do at the end now is kind of talk about who I'm going to captain and who I think is the best captain option, because it's not always the same, right? Not obviously the plan is, or the hope is, that you own the best captain option every week, but it's not necessarily the case. So for my team, I own De Bruyne, I own Salah, I don't own Spurs players as it stands. That could still change before Saturday. If it did, like if I had Son or Kane, I probably would captain them for the reasons I spoke about in the video. I don't think that because there's not a standout option that you should just go for a massive punt at all. But this could be a week to go a little bit against the grain. Kane or Son ahead of Salah, De Bruyne, Sterling. Like I said, it might be the week to do it. I've got De Bruyne and Salah. It's been on De Bruyne all week, but I'm just starting to get a little bit worried about Man City. Now we're getting closer to the deadline. And ultimately, is there ever a reason to worry about captaining Mo Salah? They're going to want to bounce back in that Villa game. So for me, it's probably Spurs boys, Liverpool boys, then Man City boys. And Chelsea, I would just, if I had them, I'd be happy enough just owning. I wouldn't be looking to captain. So 2 things I want you to do. Comment below. Let me know who your captain is and who you think the best captain option is, because like I said, sometimes they're different. And also give me feedback on this video. Do you prefer it outside of the preview? Do you think I should just rush through like I used to do on the preview? Or do you think a little bit of extra length, which everyone always likes, is better for this kind of video, so I can go into a few more stats and stuff like that? So let me know in the comments below. Please do give it a like if you've enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button as well if you're new around here, and the notification bell. And I'll just do a quick shout out to all my Patreons. So patreon.com/letstalkfpl. There's a link in the description below. Thanks to everybody that's signed up and supported me on that. It really does help out every single month. and obviously just helps me improve the channel as well. So if you want to get Slack access, WhatsApp access, extra content, there'll be a live, or not a live one, but there'll be a Q&A going out today after this video over on Patreon exclusively. So it depends what tier you sign up to. I'll do a team review and all that kind of stuff every single week, as well as converting all these videos I do on YouTube to podcasts exclusively over on Patreon. So if you want to check that out, link in the description below. I will leave it there. Leave me a comment below, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you again soon.